and streaming globally on Just TV, Roku, Meta, and the NCG television network. And today's guest is Dr. Anna Elton, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a clinical sexologist, an author, a speaker, and her work transforms the way that we understand intimacy, desire, and connection. She's also the creator of the groundbreaking Relational Desire Score, a first of its kind tool for measuring health of relationships, and her upcoming books, The Formula of Desire and Couples Therapy in the Digital Age, are already generating anticipation in the field. She also writes the widely read Life, Love, Etc. blog on Psychology Today and has been featured on PBS, Fox, NBC, and ABC, bringing her insights into homes across the globe. And in this conversation, we'll dive deeper into layers of love, intimacy, and relational health, exploring desire, communication, and the patterns that shape how we connect. And because this episode sits in the frequency of the Sacral Chakra, which is everything surrounding sex, pleasure, play, we'll also reflect on how creativity and emotional flow shape the way we love and the way we live. So thank you so much, Anna, for having taken some time today to join me. It's a pleasure, as always.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Yes. And I was actually on her podcast, which is also called Life, Love, Etc., about a month ago. And it was dived into some really creative stuff there. And I felt so intrigued to have her on my show today. So let's just dive in. So she is a clinical sexologist, which sounds really exciting. What inspired your work in intimacy and relationships?
So I guess let me take you back. So how I end up in clinical sexology. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And, at some point, like when you go into psychology, you kind of have to go all the way in, right? You have to go through your undergrad and then grad degree. So when I was choosing my graduate degree, I decided family therapy and relationship is something that is helpful for a lot of people because, I know we are trying to figure out ourselves, but we're also in relationships with others. So even if we are doing well by ourselves, we need to improve other relationships around us. That's why I decided to choose marriage and family therapy. So, and when I was done with my graduate degree, I was like, okay, I think I'm done. I'm pretty good. So let me get my license and be in the field, be a therapist. And later, how many 6 years later, I started thinking about my PhD. And at that point, I was trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do for PhD, right? Do I want to go into just ecology? Do I want to go maybe in forensic psychology? I'm really interested in, kind of what's going on there, maybe work, for the state and, work for the police. I don't know. I was just trying to find myself, what else would inspire me. And then at some point I came across a sexology degree, and first it was a joke. I was like, well, it could be really nice Halloween costume, right? Oh, sex doctor. But then I was like, hey, actually, this is a good degree, really interesting, because as a marriage and family therapist, I usually see common problems, why couples come in, why couples fight. Number one is finances. Number two is intimacy. So I was like, okay, number two is intimacy. This is something I usually work with couples, and when they want to talk about physical touch, connection, sex, right? I can, I could help them a little bit, but not much. So this is when you would need to find, sexologists to refer to, and there are not too many sexologists in the field, unfortunately. And really depends which state you're in. I think in North Dakota or Wisconsin, I don't remember which one, there's only one licensed sexologist. So it really depends where you are. So that's why I was like, okay, so this is a good field and maybe I should enter. So here I am with my PhD on low desire and mismatched desire in couples.
I love it. It sounds so catchy. I'm a sex doctor. Okay, so you mentioned the relational desire score. What is that and how does it help couples?
So when I was doing my PhD, my dissertation, I was looking at desire, right? Because I feel like we all should have desire or don't have desire, mismatched desire. And I've been seeing the most common problem couples come in. And I'm not talking about, anticipation or, any dysfunction, right? And intimacy itself. But I feel like desire is the biggest issue for couples, long-term couples. So when I started looking at, like what really like brings desire, is it just physical touch? Is it just penetration? Is it intercourse? What is desire? Because, like when you think of 5 love languages, right? So we have acts of service, we have physical touch, we have words of affirmation, quality time, and gifts. Usually for women, and again, this is gendered, right? For women,
What was the fourth one? I'm sorry.
oh, so it's the physical touch,
Yeah.
acts of service, quality time,
Words.
words of affirmation, and gifts.
Okay. Yeah. Quality time. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so for women, usually, acts of service, usually number one, right?
Okay.
And then physical touch somewhere at the bottom of the list. For men, usually physical touch is at the bottom. And acts of service maybe somewhere there, but again, like this is where like I see a lot of mismatch, right? Women want like help or like words of affirmation. They want emotional connection.
Yeah.
And men looking for physical connection most of the time, right? And this is where like the disconnect happens, because when couples come in and they say, well, he's not helping out, or he's not, doing certain things, so why would I give him passion? Passion is not passion, right? And man's like, well, I'm trying, and then nothing works, and then I feel rejected all the time. So that's when they build resentments, and then they drift apart. So that's why I was looking into formula of desire, to like look at the emotional connection, physical connection, stress. Think of the parenting. So usually when couples come in and I ask, so when this connection started, they usually say, well, when we had our first kids. And it is true. This first child is the biggest challenge to the relationship, because now you're tired, right? This first year, and I have 3 kids myself. I totally get it. I can relate. But for women, there's a lot of changes, physiological changes, right?
And hormonal changes, which is huge.
Changes a lot, exactly. So there's hormones are all over the place, and then if you're breastfeeding, if like, and it takes time to really get back to norm, and then you just like simply tired, right? You just a lot of women say they feel touched out, that they don't want touch, physical touch by their partners, because they already have been touched by their kids all day.
Yeah.
This is the last thing they're like just so and the formula of desire, so what it does, it measures, it takes in account everything, all the areas, and then it gives you where you stand, right? There are 5 areas and then the test. So this assessment will be available soon online, I would say in the next month or so.
Okay.
So people can take assessment, get their results. So it's on the Formula of Desire website, theformulaofdesire.com. So you can just see where you stand.
Okay. I'll put that in the description when we post this too. So.
Yeah. And so this is where, like, as I mentioned, this is not just the physical piece, but also the emotional piece that needs to be in place for couples to maintain that desire. And I guess the biggest myth in desire is that, desire needs to be effortless, right? If we love each other, we should want each other, but there's so much more nuances to that.
Yeah, because it's so interesting, because I didn't even really think about that, but the love language thing is so important, because there was that quote. What is it? It's like, find someone who speaks your love language so you don't spend the rest of your life translating your soul. And I feel like that's like a huge problem for people, because some guys, like you said, they crave the physical connection, and then they think that if they buy gifts, that equates to what the woman needs. And she could be like somebody who craves quality time and words of affirmation or safety and security or whatever. And so do you find that is one of the main problems, is that people speak different love languages and just don't know how to translate their desires and communicate themselves properly?
Yes. So usually, if you think that or your love language, right? Like most of people who don't even realize, what's your love language, what your partner's love language, they would tend to give the love language that they want. For example, I'm taking care of you, like I'm cooking and I'm like cleaning. I expect the same back, but maybe your partner is better at, saying, encouraging words to you, or like trying to pay this quality time, or wants hugs and kisses, right? And then that creates that mismatch.
Yeah. Okay. So how do people evolve in long-term relationships when, say they've had kids, or they've just kind of lost that initial passion or the honeymoon phase or whatever? And how do people keep the spark alive? Like, what do you?
So usually, okay, there's two desires, right? There's spontaneous desire and responsive desire. So
Okay.
usually spontaneous desire is really present in new relationships, right? When you have this excitement, new energy, anticipation, that's when, you see a partner and you want to have sex, right? You want to be intimate, you want to touch, you want to kiss, you want to hug, cuddle, and so on. But over time, this spontaneous desire dies down. And I mean, there's still kind of like the notion that like men have more spontaneous desire than women. And then a long term, it's more women, kind of reserved to responsive desire. Responsive desire, that's when you start feeling desire when you feel the touch, kisses, touch, foreplay. So you don't really want to be intimate, but then once it starts, then you start feeling desire, right? So and again, like sometimes they say, and what I see with a lot of couples, more women than men. And again, it's not necessarily, I definitely saw men with less desire than women, which is quote unquote atypical. But usually one partner approaches and the second one's like, hey, like we have kids to put to sleep, we have dishes to do, we have dinner to cook, we have all these chores, and usually intimacy or sex is the last one on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what happens? At the end of the day, you check off everything else, but then not the sex.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of like, okay, let's take a rain check, let's do it later. And then people just push it off. And then sometimes, after you stop touching, you stop flirting, you stop connecting, it's really hard to start. It feels awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Intimate with your partner.
So do you find that like, is it common when there's that lack of desire or intimacy that there could be a third party or some infidelity?
So yes, so there's actually, I talk about it in my upcoming book, The Formula of Desire. So you can actually direct your attention on something else or someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe an example. So you live two people living in the same household, and then a lot of couples say like, we feel like roommates, right? We function well, but
Mm-hmm.
then there's no connection, right? We're not connecting as much. And then at some point when you have not as much connection, maybe you start focusing, or I guess sometimes you focus on work or exercise, right? It's like women, they want to get back in shape and they're so
Mm-hmm.
hyper focused on that one thing, or children, right? Being a parent, that they don't give much attention to their partners. And then the partner, and again, not necessarily men would, kind of like fall into infidelity. It can be either or. I feel like what I've been seeing from couples coming in, it's about 50-50, right?
Okay.
Um, and then like when one is like focused on something and then the second partner feeling not connected, not appreciated, right? Not wanted, is after a while, maybe someone else would say like, oh my God, I can't believe you're so beautiful, you're so amazing. And I can't believe that the partner is not seeing it or not appreciating you. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to have a partner like that. And now like when you come home and you fight or like have conflict with your partner, and then you have this attention from someone else, that becomes tricky, right? Now you're kind of like, wow, this person really gets me, understands me, connects with me, and then I don't have this with my partner. So you direct this full attention on someone else. That's what happens with infidelity. And with the digital age, in reality, what happens, it's really like, I guess murky water and like really great area where like you can, maybe don't have intention to be unfaithful to your partner, but it can start with a text, right? It
Mm-hmm.
can start with just like talking about work or something else, or like just life in general, and then it can kind of get into flirtatious, remarks, and then more attention, and then you're interested and you're anticipating.
Mm-hmm. Or you're actively going on dating apps and
Oh, you're
seeking.
going, yeah, I definitely saw that as well. Married, partners would be on dating apps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually pretty common from what I gather. There's a site or like a page on Facebook and it's like, are we dating the same guy? And it's just crazy some of the stuff you find on there. So it's like, it's one of those things like we're in this digital age and, we're all on these different levels of kind of consciousness and expectations. And it's really disheartening when you see all the stuff that's out there. Like for me, I'm actually like, I'm completely celibate right now, and I'm so happy because I'm just taking all of that energy and channeling it into my own stuff. And I feel that a lot of women are actually kind of on this vibe right now, just because the the role of the masculine has been so kind of distorted, I think, because of everything that they're exposed to all the time. And like, instead of rising to meet the woman where they're supposed to go, they kind of, and I'm not like saying it's only men, you know what I mean? But this is just from what I've been experiencing and witnessing, that rather than, rising up to face their shadows, or realize that they have these barriers or guilt or shame, or they don't want to be vulnerable, they just kind of go in deeper into the shadows. And it's kind of at a point where it's like, women, at least the women that I know, we're all just like, no, I'd rather be alone. Do you find that that's kind of something that's increasing now? Or
So I have clients who are looking for partners, right? And I know with digital age, it's really, really tough because I feel like there's so many choices and it's almost like there will be someone else, right? And then, when you think of monogamy, when, individuals who are looking into monogamy, they're talking to multiple people and then they also don't invest fully into that person, right? It's almost like they're trying to, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like it creates the shallow connections.
Yeah, it's very superficial. It's like, oh, I like how this person looks and they check all the boxes, but it's not, real connection is deep.
So back in the day, there was this theory of social penetration, right? So social penetration theory is like onion, of the onion. No,
All these terms.
but this is actually about talking and communicating.
Okay.
No intimacy, no sex, right? I mean, it sounds intriguing. So think of the onion, right? So the layers of onion,
Yeah.
right? So usually when you meet someone, you take this outer layer and you peel it, and that's when
Mhm.
you share with someone like your name, what you like to do, what do you do for work, things like
Mhm.
that. So just like general facts, right? And then as you're getting to know a person, like you peel in the layers and you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you talk about your aspirations, dreams, maybe fears, your childhood, and things like that. And then what happens with couples when they meet, they usually, hopefully, that's where they get to this lower, like the inner level, right? The most intimate level. And that's when they feel connected. So
Mhm.
what happens when they are in long-term relationship? They actually regress. They stop connecting. They stop asking each other, about, like what they like. They change, and then they don't realize that their partner changed. And I actually had a
Mhm.
couple who, they came in, and then it was discovered in session that wife's like, well, this is not okay. He like we met 10 years ago, and she liked Harry Potter books, and then for the 10-year anniversary, he got her the limited edition of Harry Potter, and she was upset. She's like, I'm filing for divorce. And he's like, what's wrong with you? Like, I've been preparing and I wanted to surprise you with this, and this is the best thing ever. And she's like, no, I'm not the girl who you met 10 years ago. I like other things, and you don't even know me anymore. And that's a problem. And when he realized, he's like, you're right. We don't talk to each other because usually what couples, in the evenings, they say like, we don't have time to connect. And I asked them, you don't have time or you don't want to connect, you would rather do something else, something that's easier,
Mhm.
usually your phone, right? So
Yeah.
you need your phone, and then you just go on your phone, and then you will see couple on the same bed or like on the same couch in their
Mhm.
right, and that's the technoference, right? That's like when technology, interferes the connection and relationship.
Totally. And I mean, it's not even just couples, it's like parents and children and like friends going out. It's really a huge problem. So for that instance, for example, what would be a playful and practical relationship ritual that you'd recommend to a couple that, were kind of growing apart and growing more attached to their phone?
So I always tell my couples to assess what's their relationship with the phone, and then how does it look like, and they definitely need boundaries, right?
Hmm.
And then some couples would say like, okay, we want to do the stacking technique. Pretty much before we go to have dinner together, we all stack the phones on top of each other, right?
Okay.
So no phones at the table, for example, or when we go into our bedroom, we leave the phone outside of the bedroom. I mean, for some, it's creates the panic, right?
Hmm.
Your phone always on your nightstand. So in reality, what I tell couples, like whatever you want to create, whatever boundary you want to create, right? Or like, for example, when you come home from like 5 to 8, you don't take your phone, you put your phone aside and you try to be more involved with your partner, with your kids, and so on. And then like 8 to 9 would be your time to be on the phone if you want, or like whatever it is. But so a lot of the couples, they usually say like, okay, yeah, phone's been an issue. We disconnect because of the phone. We need to spend more time together. Well, let's just say like no phones in the evenings, right? But to be honest, we want to make sure that we're not setting couples for failure. We want to set them for success, because we can't just say like, if they think of like every night, like that's how you distress, settle down, like you get on your phone. So what you need to do, you need to say like, okay, how about we start with like Wednesdays with no phone. Instead of that time on the phone, let's do something together. We can use technology to connect, right? We can watch a movie. Maybe we can play board game. I have a lot of couples who actually bought board games, right, to connect and play. Read a book together. We can have sex, right? We can take a shower together. I don't know, whatever it is. Like you can do little things. So we can cook dinner together and eat and talk. So you can come up with different things. And what I tell couples, maybe make this like A through Z date night list in home, right? Could be outside of the home. It could be the sexy ideas, right? But take the alphabet, be playful, make it fun, and make the list of the things that you can do.
I think that's so important, like cultivating creativity and pleasure rituals outside of the bedroom. So it actually improves the intimacy, because it's like you have another connection and it's not just solely dependent on that. Because I feel like a lot of people, they come into these relationships and a lot of people almost like lose themselves, and they also lose that sense of like excitement. Like when you're dating, it's like, oh, where are we going to go this time? And it's like you're going on constant adventures. And then when people become more, I guess, like stable or comfortable, that's when the comfort sets in, and then they're looking for outside adventures, right?
Yeah, because what happens with couples, what's your usual to-go date, right? You go to eat, and usually you go to eat to your favorite restaurant. Right? And it doesn't, it's not special anymore, right? It doesn't bring that excitement anymore. You just go eat and fall asleep pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So what I usually tell couples, do different experiences. Do something that you used to do as a couple, or something that you always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I work with this older couple. I'm really excited that I see all these older couples in their late 70s coming in to work on their relationships.
Aw, that's so
Never
cute.
too late. And so I have this older couple, and then they came in because they said like, we don't connect. We used to be so good together. I mean, we live, like we've been together for 50 years, and now we should enjoy our life and retirement, and then we fight all the time. We're unhappy with each other. So we start talking about how to connect, how to talk, communication, right? And then how do you connect emotionally and physically. So, and I said, let's start with experiences, create this A through Z date night. And they were really excited. So they made the list and they said, okay, we're going to do at least one thing per week. They came back in 2 weeks and they said, guess what? We want to salsa night.
Ooh, I love it. I was actually just going to ask that if like practices like movement or sensuality also help strengthen the bond.
Absolutely. So any new experiences, any excitement, this is what, increases oxytocin, and then the physical touch, because what I see with couples, they stop touching each other.
Yeah.
Right. Because think of like when you first meet someone, you can't keep your hands off each other. Right. But then as you, continue your relationship, then you see each other on the opposite sides of the couch. So first you need to start bringing that touch back into the relationship. Right. And so there's this technique is 8-hug technique. So so the hug needs to be a little bit longer, not just like a little pat, but
yeah, isn't it, there's like a science behind it. Like you're supposed to have a hug for at least 8 seconds.
20 seconds.
40 seconds, and it's hard.
20 seconds.
20 seconds. Okay.
20 seconds. So when you hug someone, when you give a hug and receive a hug for 20 seconds, that's
and
when
heart to heart, people.
Yeah.
Your heart emits a frequency.
Yeah. So the brain releases oxytocin, the love hormone, right? So
happy hormones.
Yeah, the bonding, happiness. It decreases heart rate and stress level. So it's actually when you're stressed out, just give your partner a hug and say, like, give me some oxytocin, give me some endorphins. I want to feel better.
Give me some of that loving.
Yeah. And then over time, if you, start hugging someone, you creating, the boost of oxytocin, and then you create this bond again. Just think of the couple, right? So they usually, they start with a lot of touching and kissing. So same thing with kisses. Set a 6-second kiss. That's the same thing. And also extended gaze. When you look into someone's eyes for extended time, that's why you see it in romantic movies. That same thing. Oxytocin is being released.
Yes. You can actually tell because their pupils will dilate if they're feeling it.
So think about the couple, right? So first they meet and they have a lot of excitement, a lot of positive experiences as a couple, right? Then they start living together, and then life gets in the way, right? Now you have to share the bills, the chores, kids, whatever, like work, right? A lot of stressors. So now, like what you see with most of the couples, you have the neutral experiences, right? It's fine. It's like, okay, evening, or negative experiences, because now you're hyper focusing on the things that are not being done. Right. And then your positive experiences decrease. You wanted to ask something?
Yeah. So when you've worked with these couples and you've kind of helped them improve their relationships and their intimacy, what kind of healing and empowerment do you witness through this intimacy work?
So it really depends where the couple is at, right? Because there's the research is done on like terminal stage, right? The terminal stage at which couple is no longer pretty much can be a couple. There's not much you can do. And in reality, back in the day, like I still see it sometimes, but usually couples wait until the last moment to go to therapy. They're trying to figure out on their own, and it's more like, well, if nothing is working, we're gonna go to therapy. The problem with that sometimes they're already checked out. They're at that terminal stage without fully realizing, or without partners realizing it, right? So usually that pre-terminal stage that leads to breakup can last up to 2 years, right? So for example, one partner is unhappy in a relationship and they're grieving and processing the relationship, right? And then almost like collecting resentments, or maybe trying something but it's not fully working, and then by the time they reach that 2-year mark, they kind of like, we're done. I definitely had couples who came in, and I would tell them like, this is about 5 years too late. And the reason why they went stayed past the 2 years mark of this preterminal stage is because of the finances of kids, right? Sometimes they say like, we can't simply afford to move out, or we have kids and we want them to be a little bit older, or something, right? But as I said, like some couples just wait for too long, and then when they come in, and then all the resentments, all the hurt is too much, then they simply cannot heal anymore, right? There's nothing can be done. When couples struggle, but they're still like in that place where they're able to turn things around and heal, I usually say we need to start small. We need to go slow. And the first thing that I usually ask couples is to be nice to each other. That's the first step towards that healing.
Yeah, or like respectful.
So this is where like I say like, this is the first homework, right? I ask them. So we expect our partners to be good. We expect them to do everything, and then when something is not done, we point it out, right? There's no connections of positivity in your relationship. So can you think of like through the week, try to focus on the things that's being done, that you're grateful for. And first you need to be aware of that, make a note, mental note, and also try to tell your partner like, hey, thank you for doing this. I know this, you look amazing. Just like words of affirmation, right? Positivity. And then once you start doing it, you're starting to build your bucket of positive interactions. Because with a lot of couples that come into therapy, their bucket of resentments and complaints and hurt is so full that their bucket of positive moments is so empty.
So how important do you think trust is in relationships, and what if there's like a pattern of continual betrayal or whatever? Like, where do people go from there?
So as my supervisor when I was doing my PhD would say, don't let infidelity be the reason for a breakup, right? So you can heal from infidelity, absolutely, but really depends on the situation. But usually, like I had a lot of couples coming in because of the infidelity, and I definitely noticed increase of infidelity cases after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So usually what happens, like, I mean, there could be some, like, as I was talking earlier, like you connected with someone, and sometimes it's not even a physical infidelity. Sometimes it's emotional infidelity, and it was enough not to trust your partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you were sexting with someone, if you were talking to someone, if you didn't even, made the physical attempt to be
Mm-hmm.
unfaithful, but you exchange
Seeking the
nude,
attention
yeah,
or
attention, flirting, that's enough for me to not trust you, right?
yeah.
And where, like, the cases of infidelity from, serious infidelity, and like, different partners and so on, to like simply talking to someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crossing that line. So usually you start with working on trust, right? How do you trust? Like,
Yeah,
because,
but what if somebody like continuously lies to your face or something?
well, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
That's a problem because I always say, like, well, you need to be willing to be in this relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then,
vulnerable and honest. Like I feel like it's like the most vulnerable thing that you're supposed to be doing, right? And how can you be with somebody that you can't trust them because it's like you don't even know them? I had a relationship like that in the past, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know this person.
yeah. So two things, right? So with trust, first of all, you need to know, like, if there is some infidelity, like, what was going on? Was there like some needs that were not met? And
Mm-hmm.
we need to, because I feel like there's always, like, I would say it's never 100% on one end. It could be still, even if it's 99.9%, there still could be like two people working in it, unless there's, I mean, I definitely seen with infidelity, bipolar, right? And
Or
then substance
trauma, or like
trauma. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could be adding to this infidelity patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, look at the, like, what was missing, and then what do we need to do, make sure that you don't feel triggered or fall into the same patterns, right? We
Mm-hmm.
want to break the patterns with infidelity, and also stages of change. So sometimes people are simply not willing or ready to change, and that's why you have the repeated offenses. Okay?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you think of the stages of change, you have the pre-contemplation stage. At that point, people are not willing to change. You say, like, I don't have a problem. I did it because you're not giving me sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like, if you don't feel connected to a partner, you can go to therapy. You can try to talk. There's like different ways to try to communicate
Mm-hmm.
things to the partner before you fall into infidelity versus blaming the partner for
Mm-hmm.
infidelity, right? So at that point, a person is not willing to change, right? Then if something happens, usually there could be consequence. And let's say, the partner found out about infidelity, and they say, like, okay, we need to do something, or I'm leaving. So that can shift you to the next stage potentially, right? Which is contemplation. At that point, the person would say, like, okay, I see the problem. I need to do something about it. And that point, change is not fully possible because they will not be active about it. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they'll, reach out to therapists, but then don't follow through with actually signing up for the first session, or
Mm-hmm.
go to therapy but not really be checked in and do the homework, right?
Yeah.
Homework is super important for couples, or whatever it is, right? Or like keep like following the same patterns and not willing to change them. And
Mm-hmm.
then the action stage, that's when the people are usually able to work and create change. And then maintain stage, it's when you need to maintain the progress, right? It's like going to the gym, you get in shape and form, but then you still need to do something to maintain the progress. So unfortunately, what I've seen with couples, sometimes maybe the change is not even possible in this relationship because the partner is not ready for change.
Yeah.
Maybe it will take a couple more relationships for them to realize that it's not his or her partner's the problem, but them themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
really need to look into kind of what's going on. Is it my upbringing? Is it mental health? Is it trauma? Is it like anything else that's causing this?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are like common blocks that a lot of couples face with intimacy and connection?
So I would say, as I mentioned, during the, parenting stress, I mean, any financial work stress, sometimes when you're not there, your head is not there, it's hard for you to focus on intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the, physiological, psychological changes, right? Hormonal changes. So for women, it can be, up and down, right? With period, with pregnancy. Also, medication can really reduce desire, right? I mean, I had one class where we 8 hours, we looked at the like different effects of medication, and in reality, any medication can affect desire.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, right? Anything pretty much can affect desire.
It affects
And
the hormones. It's like
yeah,
a
hormones. So
chemical.
aging, chronic pain can change desire.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling disconnected from your partner, right? Unresolved conflicts. Some partners, when there was infidelity, and it takes time for them to really heal and be present, because now every time your partner does something, like you can still be triggered and think about what happened, right? Or you did it.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, there's like so many things that really puts the block in that desire.
Yeah. Okay. I want to move into more positive stuff in a second, but I'm just curious about this. So what are like common emotional barriers like guilt, shame, or vulnerability? And what is the impact of trauma and personal history on intimacy?
And you said something positive.
Well, that's after this one. We're moving on. But I just feel like, because, I feel like there's actually, there's more people out there who aren't happy than are happy. But let's just go all through that, dive into it, and then we'll paint the picture of what a healthy relationship is, because I feel like a lot of people don't even know now.
So in reality, guilt, shame, being open to this relationship, it's, like maybe you feel, shameful that you can perform. So there are cultural scripts, right? That, desire needs to be this way, that you need to, perform, or like, the frequency. There's like so many things that sometimes you have, and, like performance anxiety, right? For men,
Mm-hmm.
right? When they feel so anxious to meet the partner's needs, that they just so focus on that, and they not able to maintain direction, right? They could be some like guilt and shame from like something they did, and then being unfaithful, and now they really like walking the fine line. They could be also the trauma of rejection, and then like you tried so many times, now you can like take a step back, and you don't want to be involved with this person. The past trauma history, sexual history, it can be so many triggers that you sometimes, like when your partner triggered, or like you feel triggered, then sometimes you can like, I don't even want to even try anymore, right? It's really
Mm-hmm.
scary. It's not pleasant anymore, right? Now your brain associates it with something, scary. And now also when you been in trauma, like maybe in process trauma, hypervigilance, right? When you're always on alert, it really affects desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to relax and receive that pleasure.
Yeah, you have to feel safe to even receive it, and that's to that point of like, if you don't trust somebody, like how can you feel safe with them? And I feel like that's a huge part of intimacy. It's not just the physical part, it's about feeling safe with this person.
So I would say like another thing that is really, really important is self-desire. That's
Mm-hmm.
really
Yes.
with a lot of people, because even if your partner is showing you desire and saying like you look beautiful, you're hot, but if you don't feel that desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like you're just, maybe gain weight, or like don't look that good, or like whatever it is, you don't want to be touched,
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
And then especially for women, I mean for men as well, I definitely seen when they would go to the gym and get more in shape, and they feel better, then this testosterone goes up, right? And then they
Mm-hmm.
feel more sexual. But for women as well, because sometimes they just don't know where to start, they feel awkward, right? They don't feel desire, they don't trust their partner saying that they're beautiful, right? They kind of like, I don't know, like why you want to touch me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe you need to start with that self desire, and sometimes you need to start with a simple touch, right? Maybe you know shave your legs, or put the lotion on your legs, right? You kind of touch yourself. Maybe you put something cute on and say like, wow, I look good. Maybe sometimes you
Yeah.
just wash your hair or put the makeup on, and like,
Yes.
okay, wow, it's not bad.
That's a really powerful point, because to anybody that isn't really that familiar with the sacral chakra, it's also known as the sex chakra, and it's governed by our ability to take pleasure, to feel passion, to be playful, and it's creative. It's actually our procreation too, because it's like and it's very fluid. And so when we're in that energy, we're in balance with that, and it's all about feeling, right? So feeling good, feeling sexy, and allowing that to like flow through you. So when it's in balance, this actually challenges our intimacy, and has creative blocks. It shows up in so many ways. Like you can't express your emotions, you're afraid to be vulnerable, and it's often blocked by guilt, shame, or fear of vulnerability. But on the other side, it can actually be like an imbalance is when we have addictions to like, stimulation or sex, or like we're afraid of true connection. So we sabotage and stuff. So to heal the sacral chakra, it's all about restoring that harmony and bringing yourself into balance by giving yourself pleasure, and even just taking that time. Because when you look good, you feel good. So, doing it for yourself, not seeking that validation, like this is where I'm at right now anyways, but allowing those emotions to flow and reconnecting to yourself first, because we're all magnets, right? Like we're all like reflections of each other. And so you're more magnetic and desirable when you desire yourself, you desire your own pleasure. And so that's how we center it, and we can open it and inspire it to feel that deep connection and intimacy with yourself. So thank you for touching on that. That was really well said.
Absolutely. And then think of the mindfulness, right? We always need to slow down, because I feel like a lot of people, when they don't feel that desire, or if they can't connect to pleasure, because they can shut their brain, right? They're thinking about all other things, but they're not focusing on now and kind of what's going on, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we need to set the mood, right? Maybe we need to turn on the music, right? Think of five senses, right?
Yes.
Maybe the candles, so like the sound.
Sexy senses. What makes you feel sexy?
You need to get in that flow. There's a
Mm-hmm.
research and flow, right? Once you get in a flow, then it's easier to go versus. And also, I feel like a lot of couples, they're missing that foreplay. They stop playing with each other. Usually, they say like, "Okay, it's Thursday, 6 p.m. It was planned.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go," and it's not sexy, right? They just,
Mm-hmm.
you need to prepare. You need to anticipate. Maybe you need to text something to your partner. It's like, hey, I'm looking forward to, something. You're like, guess what I forgot to wear? Like, I forgot my underwear. Like, whatever it is, like some playful remarks to spark that, sexuality and excitement.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So can you give us, I know that it's always different for every single couple, but can you give the viewers an example of what a healthy, intimate relationship would look like or feel like? I mean, obviously it's different, but more about the embodiment of it. Like, how should it make you feel?
So I would say it's not like I guess like the whole thing is like, it's either you have desire or not.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to focus on like, how do we create desire for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does desire looks like for me, and how can we create it together? So some people focus on frequency of sex, right? They say like, okay, we need to have sex once a week, and I mean, according to
Oh, I
research,
thought you meant like frequency, like that is some high vibe sex.
or the performance, right?
That should be a goal though.
But I mean, obviously, like there was research done. If like, even if you increase the frequency, it will not give you that satisfaction, right? It's not just the frequency matters, obviously.
Because it was depleting. Actually, there's something else I want to touch on before that might be a little negative. Go on.
So because if you only have sex, twice a year, obviously it's a problem. But like if you just maintain that intimacy and sexuality, and then I feel like keeping each other comfortable, right? Looking forward to it, being playful with each other, touching each other, kissing each other. Maybe sometimes not the full intercourse, but being playful. And again, back in the day, there was this exercise introduced by Kingsley Institute, the Sex Institute in the United States, and it was squeeze and release, and exactly what it is, And I'm thinking like all the I guess all the stress toys, right? We're playing with stress toys. We always have our partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Toys to play with.
Yeah. Okay. So this isn't necessarily positive, but I think it's important, and it actually relates to the book that I'm publishing. It's called The Parasite Purge, which discusses parasites on more of a, like, not just a physical level, but a metaphoric. Like there's the energetic parasites, spiritual parasites, environmental parasites, but energetic parasites are often with relationships, and they're not all intimate, but it's that energetic parasite, that person who basically drains you of your energy, and a lot of the time it's through sexual intimacy, because that is where we're totally like, exposed, and there is a deep energetic exchange that like tethers you to this person. Do you find that there's a lot of kind of like, I guess another way to put it is almost like the empath and the narcissist, do you find that you get a lot of that in sex therapy, or those types of people, just like the parasites, just don't want to go to therapy?
To be honest, I never heard this term before with couples. They never describe it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it happens, right? But then maybe they don't have the language to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they, and again, like talking about sex, even with sex therapists, it's extremely, extremely difficult, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
And
can be like, you are an energetic parasite.
so, and I usually tell couples, I mean, even to start the dialogue, like I tell couples, like, okay, so just to let I know you came here for, communication. Usually, couple come because of communication, but I'm also, sex therapist, and then if you ever need to address intimacy, this is a safe space. So usually they say like, yeah, we want to talk about it, and it takes time for them to even address it. And sometimes people would feel shame or guilt, and it's really hard to talk to them, but about it. Or some people are really open and they really want to explore.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is something new I heard, and this is really interesting. I would definitely interested to look into the,
Yeah.
energetic parasite and just see how it, because usually it's like, they couples don't describe their performance, so they just talk about.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not just that. I just mean it's like in the presence of a certain person, it can be draining.
Mhm.
Where some people are literally sunshine and just being around them, you're like, wow, I feel so good. I feel so energized. And then other people, you're like, you feel heavy and like it's just you're almost like not yourself, which is where it's kind of almost parasitic because parasites, it's like invaders or it's almost like possession in a sense because their energy takes over your energy.
Mhm. Interesting. I'll look into that.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm the one writing a book on it. I just wanted to see how you how you felt about that. If you thought about it at all, or noticed anything. Okay, so just to close off, because we're getting close to the time, what would be one sacral or sexy inspired practice that you'd recommend to help couples reconnect on a deeper level?
So I would say, I guess we don't talk about sex. So maybe try one thing that you can, just figure out with your partner is the brakes and accelerators, right? There's always something that turns you on, you find hot, right? But we don't talk about it, right? We talk about everything, but not sex.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe do the exercise with your partner. Just name one thing, like one accelerator. What makes you excited? What turns you on with your partner? And one break, maybe something that you should avoid next time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what lights your fire? Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Anna Elton. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and all of your clinical insights and your compassionate vision for healthier, more connected relationships. Your work reminds us that intimacy is not just physical, it's emotional, spiritual, and deeply human. And to everyone for tuning in, if today's conversation gave you some fresh insight, some sexy inspiration, or lifted some of the weight around intimacy, you are invited to connect with Dr. Anna Elton to explore her offerings, writings, and resources to deepen your own journey of love and connection. I will be posting her links in the description. And if this episode resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe, and follow me, the Chakra Goddess, on Instagram for more conscious conversations. And you can find Dr. Anna Elton as well on Instagram. And until next time, stay open, stay radiant, and keep feeding your chakras. Thank you so much. Peace, love, and infinite blessings.